Swayam Prabha. Digital India. Educated India.
Welcome to lecture 55. In this week we have started discussing few elements of your competencies which will enhance your performance at the organization level and also personal level. So, those competencies we have discussed in the first one or two lectures in this week, and in the last lecture we have discussed that effective negotiations, how effective negotiations can solve larger problems and what are the skills and competencies and preparedness required at the negotiation at the personal level and also at the group level. Today we are going to discuss another very important aspect of the organizational and the personal effectiveness, that is the communication skills. You know that communication skills is one of the very important skill which is essential for a city managers who are working at the local level or any organization of the urban government. So, we'll under this lecture we will see what are the basic elements. So, we will see the significance of the effective communication. We will start with this element, then the types of communications we do in the office or in the workplace, and to understand in a better way we will discuss a theory which is called transactional analysis theory, for which is required for the communication, and also we will discuss some amount of effective listening, and also we will just mention the writing skill, what are the salient features in the writing skills, that also I would mention in this lecture. So, the effective communications are done with the objective of, sometimes it is an information in the office or the organization, we send the communication for giving the information or education. Sometimes we get the notification or we get the information for educational or awareness reason. It can be an advice, we can get written instruction from the office or from the higher authorities as a advice which has advisory role. It can be a warning, it can be an order, office order, or simply a notification. It can be kind of a common undertaking or common declaration. It can be a declaration or announcement which could raise morale of the people. It can be a suggestion which we do person to person or to between the groups, or it can be a motivation again, and it can be persuasion. Sometimes we do communicate for to persuade some projects, to persuade some approval in the office and so on. And there are various types of communication. The first communication is the verbal, the way I am trying to reach you through only the verbal communication, and it is the education and the awareness which is the basic objective of this NPTEL course. So, here basic communication mode is verbal, and also there are written communication which in terms of the course material and everything I will be giving. So, in actual practice also in your office or in your workplace you have verbal and also non-verbal communication which is expressed through our gesture, posture or the body language, and other than that there could be written communication in terms of the letters, in terms of the notification, declaration, in terms of the rules, regulation, order, office order, etc. And apart from that there could be electronic mode of communication in terms of the email communication, online sharing, all types of communications are there. So, usually in official purpose we use written communication as a authentic communication mode, and nowadays the electronic communication like emails also we depend on electronic communication, because written communication mostly dependent on the paper mode or the or the hard copy mode. We usually discourage the hard copy mode of written communication. So, we depend on the electronic communication when we do some written communication, and verbal and non-verbal communication are most important, which helps us in day to day working of office. So, in this verbal and non-verbal communication, we will see that in this communication what are the internal causes and the factors which makes a communication successful or not successful. So, this is very important. So, I would like to share one theory which is called transactional analysis theory. In short, it is called as a TA theory. It is given by one scholar called Eric Berne. So, I will discuss some aspect of this theory, so that you understand that how a communication takes place and what is the basis of that communication on which the communication becomes successful and not successful. So, as per this theory, it says that every individual personality having some ego states, from which ego state they transact, or they try to speak or try to express their ideas, and those exchanges are called transactions. So, transactions are basically exchange of ideas, emotions, information, etc. Like, and there are various other elements like strokes, games, etc. So, we are not going to do all this in this lecture. We will just mention this first two, so that you can understand, and these are applicable at the individual level, community level, and organization level as well. Now, in this theory, basically it is based on the concept of ego states. Ego states is nothing but the state of mind. Basically, ego state is a state of mind from which we talk. State of mind. For example, the state of mind which I am having right now, and the state of mind which I will be having during the weekends when I will take my family to some holiday will be completely different, and same to you whenever you work in an office. The state of mind and when you spend time with your friend and relatives are completely different. So, ego states are defined as a state of mind, and it is defined as a set of consistent and coherent pattern of thinking, feeling or behaving. So, if you see the keywords, the thinking, feeling and behaving. So, starting from the state of mind, that is the thinking, it is the own feeling, and then behaving, that is we are trying to interact with the people or the community. And based on these ego states, the communication consists two things, one is response and one is stimulus. Stimulus is what we get from the environment, and response is that what we return to that stimulus. So, these two things you should remember. I will come back again to this term. So, stimulus is basically what we get. It can be a written communication, verbal communication, non-verbal communication, and in return verbal, non-verbal communication, and that is called as a response. And as per this theory, they are dividing the ego states into three complete different ego states, and they are calling it parent, adult and child. It is very interesting to know that these are the three different ego states they are identifying. Now, let me tell you one by one that what is the difference between three ego states. Now, the parent ego states are defined to have the belief system which we have from the very childhood, the cares which we learn from our parents, the controls which we follow or we learn from our parents or the parental figures, judgment or taking judgment and the opinion on any subject, any phenomenon, any events, prejudices which we inherit or we develop during the course of our life, and value system which we learn from our parents. That is why it is called parent. So, the thinking pattern which we get from basically parental figure. So, here the parental figures means mostly the father and mother, and at the age of by 15 we develop all these elements like cares, beliefs, controls, values, judgment, prejudices, and apart from the parents we also learn many things from our grandparents, because they are also parental figure. In some cases, if you are brought up in some other situation like say orphan home or some residential school, you learn many things from your teachers or the guardians. So, these are also parental figures. So, whatever we learn and we follow in our life in terms of the cares, beliefs, controls, etc., those are termed to be as parent. Second is that, and also orders. Second is that when we try to understand or seek data or information or assess to we try to think something, analyze something, or we take a decision based on some fact. So, those are termed as the adult ego status. So, adult ego status is basically all related to information, data, analysis and the reality of the world. It does not include the elements like care, beliefs, emotions, order, prejudices, value system, because those are thinking sets which we inherit from the parents. But adult is the kind of, like for example, I may try to get the data about today's weather, I may try to get the weather about the data about the information about some traffic and transportation or some journey or some particular course. So, when I seek data, when I try to analyze data to take some decisions, those qualities or those actions are included in the ego states, which is defined as adult. Now, I do not know what is the reason for giving this type of names, but the names are interesting and it is distinctly different ego states and the thinking and the mind state. So, after parent and adult, the third is the child ego states. The child ego states consist the feelings about anything, internal feelings. Second is the creative aspect of our mind, then intuitive, the very intuitive aspect of our mind by which we try to explore new thing and try to innovate new thing. So, these feelings, creation, innovation and intuition, these are aspect of the child ego status, and if you see very carefully the parent ego status, adult ego status and child ego status, in the child ego status these are basically emotional aspects which is included in the child ego status. So, to summarize, the parent ego status will have all the learnings in terms of the controls, cares, judgment, the orders, everything, prejudices from the parent. Adult ego status is basically informative and photographic. It tries to analyze everything and try to understand, learn everything from the reality, and child ego status is basically expression of our own emotions, expressions of our creation and the intuitions. These are distinctly different from the adult and the parent ego status. Now, in communication, in official and our social communication, these are manifested either verbal, non-verbal or any other kind of communication skills. So, those are like it is manifested in, it can be manifested in vocabulary, that is verbal communication, it can be manifested in type of voice or tone, it can be manifested through typical gesture, posture or facial expression. So, I will just show you that under each ego status what kind of vocabulary, tone or gesture, posture, facial expressions are involved. Just have a look of all those. So, I start with the parent ego status. These are some of the vocabulary, you can have a quick reading. So, if you follow the words are will tell you that these are controlling in nature or caring in nature. You can see one sentence also as an example, and these are some of the words which we speak when we speak from the parent ego status. The tone could be complying with the vocabulary, it could be loud, harsh, it could be punishing, sympathetic, all this kind of tone will be there. Similarly, the gestures could be like pointed fingers, shaking head. So many gestures, postures are involved in the parent ego status. Similarly, the facial expressions are also there. These are facial expression. I could not get the actual facial expression or the graphical representation, but I think you could understand from this, or in later also you can try to see some graphical representation. Similarly, for the child ego status, the vocabularies will be like, these are the vocabulary. Wow, give me, you will just see the words. So, if you see the words, basically child ego status is all about the human emotions, and when you see the human emotions, these are basically, it can be emotions of the sad, or being angry, or being joyful like glad, or scared, that is fearful. In the tone, it could be different type of tone, distinctly different from the parent ego status, which will express the emotions. It can be sad emotions or joyful emotions, but the tone and the vocabulary will be distinctly different. In the gestures and posture, the gestures will be more soft, not a very rigid one like the parent ego status. The facial expressions will be also different. It can be tears, or expression of the eyes or your head, or various different type of expressions. So, these are also different from the parent ego status. Next, let us see the adult ego status. In the adult ego status, it is basically this ego status where people try to understand, try to analyze, and try to make decisions of the life. So, they make questions: what was the problem, what was the internal problem, what was the inner critical problem, what is the physical surrounding, what was your thought, what is your body language, what did you decide. So, if you see the set of questions, these are basically, we generate this type of questions and insights for any events, any phenomenon, or any person. Similarly, it will be expressed in through the vocabulary like how, why, when, where, what, all these are. So, 5 W's and H. So, these are basically vocabularies for the adult ego status. In the tone, tone will be clear and calm. For example, now I am expressing the lecture from a adult ego status completely. Because my tone is clear and calm, I am trying to giving some information, and I am trying to seek some information, trying to raise some questions so that you can understand better this subject. So, this is a typical example of a adult ego status communication. From the gesture and posture, it will be straight, lean forward. So, gestures and postures and facial expressions are completely different than the parent and the child ego status. So, I hope you got some examples of the parent, adult, and the child ego status. Now, they express, so adult ego status is the symbol of thinking and learning. So, that is how we think and learn in our life and in our organization also. Now, to summarize, this is the 3 ego status told together, and these 3 ego status are expressed together to represent one person's mental ego state. So, if we, and they have also distributed or divided each ego status into different subsets, like parent ego status are called as controlling, and nurturing. Right. Similarly, the child ego status is also divided into AC, which is adapted child, where a child try to adapt with the situation and the environment. LP is called as a little professor. The name is very interesting because they have given this name. The meaning of the little professor is that the mental state of the child which tries to explore something, to to create something, to innovate something, and NC is the natural child. And in the adult they have photographic adult, So, where we see and try to learn everything, and another is the analyzing, where we try to analyze the data and try to take a decision. So, these are the subsets of the every ego state. Now, they are saying that we communicate from the particular ego set, and that is the stimulus, and the response also will come from another ego set. So, the stimulus and response will come from a particular ego set, either it will come from the parent, child or adult, and it can be different, like stimulus and response could be different. I will show some examples so that you understand how the communication takes place. So, based on these exchanges there could be 3 types of transaction, and this transaction will lead 3 types of communications. So, first one is the complementary, second is crossed, third is the ulterior. So, these 3 transactions are linked to 3 laws of the communication that I will discuss now. So, let us see some of the example. So, example 1, this is the ego state of one person, and this is the ego state of another person, and this is the communication which is taking place. Now, if you see this communication, that these 2 persons are talking about the unions, and it is the discussion is basically judgmental or opinion based. These are neither information, neither this is the expression of the emotions. So, this is basically stimulus is also from parent to parent, and response is from parent to parent. See the second example. In the second example, it is the exchange of the information. What time is the meeting? It is 3 p.m. So, it is the exchange of the information. So, it is the exchange between the adult to adult. See the third example. Just read the communication, you will understand. So, it is the expression of the emotion or the feeling, and I told that emotion and feeling is basically child ego status. So, stimulus and response both are from child ego status, and this type of ego, the transaction or exchanges where the same ego states are involved, that is generating the complementary transaction, and here the complementary transactions are appropriate, expected, simple, and lines of communications are parallel. So, that is why this is called complementary transaction. If you see the diagrams, the transactions are parallel, nowhere it is crossed or crossing each other. That is why it is the communication law 1 which is termed as complementary transaction, and this transaction will continue. Second, if you see this different examples, okay, see this example. Here the transaction is between parent and child. See the stimulus. So, this question is basically this one, and response is this one. So, stimulus is from child to parent, a child expresses her inability or to do the work, and response is that is a caring. Do not worry, I will help you out like last time. So, it is a caring, and caring means it is basically nurturing parent, in short it is NP. So, therefore, here also the same ego status is involved for the stimulus and response. So, therefore, it is a complementary transaction. Same with the this example, just have a look, right. So, here the stimulus is from the parent to child, and response is from child to parent. So, here also this will be complementary. So, this complementary transaction gives the birth of communication law 1. I just read out the law. When the lines of the transactions are parallel, they are complementary, the communication is open and likely to continue, and this type of communication generates birth of the friendly situation situation, and because it is a very healthy communication, because lines are parallel and it is happening between the similar the same ego status. Now, see these examples. Okay. So, the stimulus is basically adult to adult because it is asking for the information, but the response is from parent to child because it is somebody scolding somebody because of the being late. So, here in this case, in this example, you could see that the communication lines are crossing each other, right. In the second example, you see that somebody is trying to comment on something, that why had you to say everything to your boss, from parent to child, and another person is trying to give the response from parent to child also. So, here also the lines of communications are not parallel, it is crossed. See the third example. So, this is an information stimulus, and response is basically from the child to parent. Probably this is the communication between husband wife probably. So, you can see that it is a crossed communication. So, in this type of communication, see few more example just for better understanding. So, here it is a cross transaction, and here even if it is not crossed, but it is not parallel, right. So, this type of transactions gives another communication law. I just read out for you. When the response is not from the ego state addressed or is to a different ego states, lines of communication cross and communication stops, noise may go on. That means there will be noise, there will be differences, there will be conflict, and there will be the communication cannot continue. So, our objective is to convert the cross communication to a parallel communication. That means from the cross transaction to the complementary transaction. So, that is why I have written the can we change them to parallel. So, give alternate responses to each. So, in your own time you can try to make to convert the cross transaction or cross communication to parallel communication. Third one, just see this type of transaction. So, here in this example 1, you can see that somebody is asking somebody which seems to be a information, but whatever they are representing or telling, they have a hidden meaning. The hidden meaning is a transaction between child to child. So, hidden transaction is written in green color so that you can understand, and the response is coming from the same child ego status which is not expressed, which is hidden, which is untold. So, here more than two ego states are involved, one is expressed, one is unexpressed. Similarly, you can see the second example, this is the expressed communication and this is the understood communication or hidden, right. So, here also you can see that two sets of communications are there, one is expressed, one is not expressed. So, this type of communications where you say something, but you mean something which is you are not telling, but which is, and the other person also understanding that hidden meaning, and they are responding to the expression, and they are responding in such a way so that they are responding whatever I have said, and they are responding without telling the answer, they are meaning that okay, some response is there. So, both kind of expressed and unexpressed, both kind of communications are there, and this is called ulterior transaction. So, ulterior transaction basically is the outcome of two ego states. It can be parallel or crossed, both can be there, but the effectiveness or the utility depends on the hidden and psychological transaction. It can be bad, it can be good in a team. When people work in a team and they use ulterior transaction for better benefit, but in some cases ulterior transaction also could be bad. So, use ulterior transaction judiciously whenever it is required, but definitely cross transactions are not expected in official situation or in organization and also in the personal front. So, having said that, I would like to say that in verbal and the non-verbal communication, here I could show only the verbal communication part, because non-verbal communication part was not possible to show. But so, out of the communication law 1, 2, 3, definitely the complementary transaction and the ulterior transaction which we should use judiciously, whereas the cross transaction should be discouraged. Now, I would like to mention some amount of significance of the listening skill. Now, whatever we speak, whatever we communicate, written or the verbal, it depends on our understanding of the situation, understanding of the stimulus, and based on the understanding, the quality of the response depends. That is why effective listening is very much important. If you do not listen anything carefully, you cannot respond. So, what are the effective listening tips, or what are the effective listening skills which required to be considered or kept in your mind? So, just I am reading out: face the speaker and maintain eye contact. So, eye contact is very important in a listening. Be attentive but relaxed, do not be anxious to hear them, or do not start thinking about something, or do not try to think about the response or the answer of the questions or the what you are listening. So, just listen, keep an open mind to, it can be a criticism at times, maybe the other person is criticizing you, but be an open mind and let him complete whatever he wants to say. So, being an open mind, try to listen the whole thing, listen to the words and try to picture what the speaker is saying, and at the same time what the speaker is trying to say. So, both are important to understand. Do not interrupt and do not impose your solutions in between the listening. Wait for the speakers to pause and ask clarifying questions. Ask questions only to ensure understanding. If you do not understand anything, you can stop definitely and then ask the question for the better clarification. Otherwise, it is not desired to stop any conversation. Try to feel what the speaker is feeling. So, it is important that the speaker is expressing something from his own feeling. Just now we have talked about the ego status, maybe he is expressing some the incidents of the accident, but he is expressing his feelings of sadness. So, your expression and you have to try to the feeling of the other person. So, in that method you can achieve the effective communication and effective listening. Then give the speaker regular feedback about whatever you have listened, and pay attention to what isn't said, to the non-verbal cues, and as I have told that what is not spelt out, what is not told, that is also important to understand in every situation. So, please try to improve your listening skill, and if you try to improve your listening skill, you can also improve the communication skill. Lastly, I would like to give some more points that in official situation in your organization, often we make the written communication from making letters, making orders, notification, etc. So, what are the salient points which you should keep in your mind for the written communication skills that I would like to mention? First is that your writing content will be precise and to the point expressions. So, less is more. You should avoid jargon, use simple and direct words, and you write once and check twice, so that your whatever you write is errorless or minimum errors. Pay special attention to the names, titles and genders. The reason is that people are sensitive about the names, titles and gender. So, if you make mistakes in making such names, titles and genders, you will invite the trouble for you. Save templates. Sometimes we make multiple letters, multiple written documents. So, for that we can make a standard templates, and as and when required we can use that template for the future generation of the written communication. Be professional, not necessarily formal. Remember the 5 W's, that is the why, where, when, etc., and also H, how. call to action, your written communication skill should end up in actions. The actions could be from your side, actions could be from the other side, where you are writing a letter or the notification, that what exactly you are seeking to from this written communication. Then do not give too many choices. If you write written communication like letter, do not bring too many issues, too many expectation, or too many subject in one letter. One letter should contain ideally one subject or one action which is required from the other side. What's in it for your reader. So, apart from the letters, we sometimes make notifications, reports, etc., where there could be several ideas, several content, several subjects. So, what exactly you are bringing in for your readers. Like for example, in this course we are also going to give some written communication for you. We are going to give the lecture notes, so that you get little more ideas, more examples, more reference readings, etc. Similarly, when you make written communication with your subordinates or with your superiors or with other organization, do not forget to give additional references, additional informations, maybe in terms of annexures, appendix, etc., but your main communication should be precise, so that it can reach to the target and with a specific request of action. Those kind of written communication is required. So, please see the written communications which is there in your office and try to differentiate that good communication and bad communication, not so good communication, based on these criteria, right. So, with this we would like to summarize today's discussion. Today we discussed about the communication skills, which is very important in day to day work in our organization, and we told you that the communication can be verbal, non-verbal, written and electronic communication. Usually we use written and electronic communication for the official purpose, when we need a record for the transaction or the communication, and the verbal and non-verbal communication is required to work in a team as a day to day basis. And then we tried to give idea of the theory of the transactional analysis, which is given by Eric Berne, and this idea is the backbone or the basis of the transaction or the communication. We have learned 3 rules. The communication rule 1 is that we learned that when the communication is made from the same ego status and the communications lines are parallel, then it will be termed as the complementary transactions. And before that we also discussed the ego status. We have 3 types of ego status: parent, adult and the child. And then we discussed that if the transaction or the communication lines are not parallel and crossed, this communication will not continue, it will bring conflict. So, this kind of communication is not desired in the organization and the personal level. Third, we have seen that ulterior transaction, where more than 2 sets of communications are happening together, one is expressed, one is unexpressed, and ulterior transactions can be used judiciously as and when required, but mostly the complementary transaction, where the parallel communications lines are there, which I showed in the discussion, which is required. Then we discussed the effectiveness and the significance of the listening skills. We discussed salient criteria and salient methods for good listening, and in the last we have discussed about the written communication in the day to day work in your office or otherwise. Also the written communication is important. Your written communication should be precise, short, simple, without jargons and with all the information, and ideally one written communication where you are writing maybe your subordinate or maybe your superior, it should contain one subject, so that you can indicate some actions required after this written communication. Having said that, I would like to conclude today's lecture, and next lecture will be on the time management. That is very important. I will emphasize the basic structure of the time management, and for the city managers how the time management is important, that also I will discuss in the next lecture. So, thank you very much for the attending this lecture.